3 Sinister, haunted, true stories of unexplained noises outside, revealed terrifying encounters. Jessica felt the chill run down her spine as she huddled under the thin blanket on her couch. The humming of her refrigerator was drowned out by something else entirely, something sinister lurking just outside her home, tapping into her deepest fears. A cold sweat dripped from her brow as she recalled the unsettling stories that flowed around the neighborhood about shadows flickering at night, about muffled whispers twisting through the still air. Each evening, after her exhausting night shifts at the diner, she returned to the safety of her suburban home, tucking her kids, Ethan and Lily, into bed, hoping to shield them from the horrors she imagined cloaked in the shadows. But tonight felt different. The air was thick, heavy with an unease that coiled in her stomach. It started with weak whispers, echoing through her open window, a haunting sound that curled around her bones, sending her heart racing. "Mom?" Ethan's small voice broke through the silence, his wide eyes filled with an innocent anticipation that froze her in place. "What's that noise?" Jessica hesitated, searching for reassurance in her own words. "Just the wind, sweetie. Go back to sleep." But her heart sank as her instincts screamed otherwise. The whispers transformed, reaching a fever pitch, growing more frantic, clawing at her sense of security. Panic surged through her. As the days passed, her anxiety morphed into dread. Ethan came rushing into her room, claiming he saw a shadow at the backyard fence, lurking in the darkness. A rush of icy fear shot through Jessica. Her blood ran cold as the security she felt every night crumbled. Lurking beyond their well-lit yard, beyond the illuminated sidewalks, her heart thundered. "I have to check this out," she whispered to herself, gripping a flashlight with trembling hands. The grass felt damp beneath her slippers as she ventured outside, her breath catching in her throat. Each crunch underfoot echoed too loudly in the stillness. The world felt heavy, holding its breath. Light flickered with each movement, revealing only shadows, each dark corner teasing her instincts to look away. Just when she thought she would turn back, a sudden bolt of lightning illuminated a grotesque shape, briefly a figure that seemed all too familiar. The next morning, racked with guilt and fear, Jessica spent hours buried in research, uncovering the neighborhood's dark history. She learned of missing families and a neighbor who taught school before fading into obscurity. Each revelation deepened the pit in her stomach, isolating her further. "This can't be real," she muttered, fingers trembling over her keyboard. The authorities dismissed her concerns, calling her fears irrational. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As darkness draped her home once more, muffled cries seeped through the walls, this time sharp with desperation. A panic rose inside her, urging her to confront the lurking horrors. Was her once safe sanctuary now the source of unseen terror? With a storm brewing, she stepped outside again, adrenaline pounding in her ears. As thunder cracked above, rain began to pelt the ground, mingling with the whispers that echoed in her mind. Just then, lightning flashed, and there it was again, a figure hauntingly familiar, standing right at her fence, staring directly at her. Her heart raced as time stopped, an unsettling realization crashed over her. This community, once her haven, now stood faceless and cold. What awaited her beyond the facade of the suburban charm? She was about to find out. The thunder roared above her, drowning out any semblance of calm. Jessica felt her heart hammering against her ribcage as the figure stood unmoving, its dark form a stark contrast against the flashes of lightning. It was him, or something that looked just like him, the neighbor who had vanished without a trace years ago. The wind whipped through her hair, pulling her closer toward the fence, as if the storm had come alive, urging her to confront the horror. "Who are you?" she shouted, her voice quivering as the air crackled with fear. The figure remained silent, its eyes glistening with an ominous knowing that sent shivers coursing through her. The whispering returned, echoing from the shadows that cocooned her surroundings, blending with the rain's drumming on the ground. Jessica fought the urge to turn and run back inside. As she stepped closer, the rain hammered down incessantly, each drop feeling like icy needles against her skin. She blinked back tears, trying to steady her breathing. Was this some sick joke, a figment of her overactive imagination? Every story she had learned about her neighborhood rushed back, the missing children, the strange happenings, the crime that had seeped into the polished veneer of suburban life. Suddenly, it all felt too real. The figure took a step forward, and her legs instinctively froze. With a flicker of lightning, she caught a glimpse of its face, pallid, gaunt, eyes sunken and hauntingly void of life but brimming with an inscrutable hunger. Jessica stumbled backward, inching toward the house, but she knew she had to stand firm. "Get away from my family!" she yelled, feeling a surge of defiance push her back. That he tilted his head slightly, a grin spreading across his lips, but it didn't reach his eyes. Desperation clawed at her throat. She ran. Sprinting to the door, she slammed it shut behind her, heart racing as she leaned against it, breathless. Bolting the locks, a sound prickled at her ears, scratching, forging through the darkness. "Mom!" Ethan's voice cried out from upstairs, breaking through her reverie. "Mom, I'm scared." Panic surged at the thought of leaving him alone. She raced up the staircase, the creaking steps echoing the dread pooling within her. "I'm coming, Ethan," she gasped. Each room they passed felt like it could ignite with the terror she felt, shadows stretching ominously in the flickering light. When she reached the bedroom, she threw open the door, only to find the room empty. No Ethan, and the bed undisturbed. Her heart sank as she looked at the open window, the curtains billowing like ghostly hands reaching outward. The whispers intensified, swirling around her, tugging at her sanity. Where could he be? Stepping carefully into the room, Jessica switched on the lamp. Darkness receded, but her anxiety remained. She rushed to the window, peering out at the stillness of the backyard, now bathed in bizarre hues from the intermittent lightning. Had the figure taken him? But before she could cry out, a soft, familiar giggle echoed from the hallway. Relief and disbelief battled within her. "Ethan!" she called, practically stumbling from the room. As she rushed out, the lights flickered again, and that figure reappeared in her mind, the knowing grin never leaving its face. Jessica skidded to a halt, breath hitching her throat as she saw where the giggle had come from. Ethan stood in the living room, his back to her, seemingly transfixed by something just outside. "Ethan, turn around!" she sobbed, panic tightening around her chest. He turned slowly, his smile wide, eyes sparkling with uncharacteristic joy. "Mom, look!" He asked back. In that moment, dread twisted within her gut as she turned her head toward the darkened window. The figure stood there once more, now not just a ghost of a haunting memory but a promise of something far worse. What price would she pay to save her children from the terror that had returned? Jessica's blood turned to ice as she registered her son's words. He asked back. The chilling weight of that statement enveloped her, squeezing her lungs tight. She filled her chest with a deep breath, fighting the urge to scream. The figure loomed outside, chuckling softly to itself, as if savoring some private joke while her world twisted into chaos. "Ethan, don't look!" she shouted, but it felt like yelling into a void. Her voice was drowned by the pounding rain and distant thunder that rolled ominously overhead. Ethan's small body turned fully toward the window, his face alight with something dangerously close to delight. "Mom, he said he is going to play with us." "Play?" Jessica echoed, disbelief turning her words brittle. "No, no, sweetheart, he is not your friend." At that moment, darkness poured in through the window, not just the absence of light, but an oppressive presence, thick and suffocating. Jessica could almost feel it creeping over her skin, chilling her bones. She stepped forward, desperate to reach her son, a fire of fear igniting her legs leading her closer. "Ethan!" She gasped, her voice barely holding it together. She had to bring him away from the glass, from the entity that beckoned him with those ghostly fingers. "Please, come here." But instead of moving, her son giggled again, a sound that twisted in her gut. "He said he wants to show me the secret." "A secret?" A cold wave of dread crashed over Jessica. She was suffocated by the weight of it all, the memories of the neighborhood's whispered tales flooding back. Secrets like the old house on Maple Street, tales of children who vanished after hearing voices that lured them under the cover of night. "No, Ethan!" she shouted, lunging forward. In that moment, the lights flickered once more, and in the brief instant of illumination, she caught a glimpse of the figure outside. Its grin stretched impossibly wider, revealing jagged teeth that glimmered like sickly moonlight. "Mommy! You have to see!" Ethan insisted, oblivious, his voice lilting with excitement. "He says he has toys." Toys? The grip of horror dug deeper into Jessica. How long had it been since the neighbor had vanished? Long enough for every parent on the street to warn their kids about staying away from strangers. And here was Ethan, enchanted by an evil long thought gone, staring wide-eyed at the creature beyond the window. "Close your eyes!" Jessica screamed, thrusting herself closer to him as she felt the creeping despair of the room trying to swallow them whole. She had to cut the connection. Had to drag him away from that gaze. But the wind howled outside, rattling the window, and in that cacophony, a new sound emerged, a laughter, deep and rumbling, echoing with threat. The lights flickered once more and, in the darkness that followed, Jessica felt an insidious presence pushing against her mind, twisting her thoughts. "It's going to take him, Jess." Just like before, she felt her resolve falter. All she wanted was to protect her son, but instinct warned her, the moment could slip. "No!" she cried, launching across the room, shaking him. "We have to go. Now!" Just then, she noticed that Ethan's reflection in the glass wasn't entirely his own. In that flash of lightning, behind him, the figure loomed, hands pressed flat against the pane. "Mommy," Ethan whispered, his tone shifting. "He doesn't want us to leave." Jessica's heart raced and the terror pooled in her gut. What had she unleashed? What price would they pay? In that pregnant pause, a chilling realization struck her: this was only the beginning. The laughter outside deepened, wrapping around them, coiling tighter. How long could she fight against the dark? Would it take her son too? As the darkness pushed through the edges of her sanity, a sinister truth settled within her: a cost was coming. Could she afford to pay it? Jessica's fingers trembled as she desperately grasped the edges of Ethan's shoulders. His warm skin felt like a beacon of life amidst the cold dread creeping through the corners of their home. The specter outside was no longer just a silhouette, it was a looming terror, a nightmare clawing at the fabric of their reality. "Ethan, listen to me," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "We need to stay away from the window. Whatever that is, it's not your friend." But Ethan stared past her, entranced by the dark figure outside. His eyes sparkled with an unnatural glow, a child mesmerized not by magic, but by malevolence. "He's waiting, Mommy, waiting for me to come out and play." The air thickened, the shadows swirling as Jessica stood, wavering between fierce protectiveness and the sinking despair of defeat. She could feel it, a magnetic pull of darkness surrounding the house, seeping through the walls like fog on a moonless night. "Ethan! Please!" With a swift motion, she yanked him back from the edge, but he resisted, his small body pushing forward, wanting to yield to the call from that ominous figure. The lights flickered again, casting long, twisting shadows that danced like specters on the walls. In that fleeting glow, she caught a glimpse of the worst part of its face: the glittering teeth, the soulless eyes that shone like dying stars. Every instinct screamed for her to run, but she was rooted, horrified and helpless in the face of the unimaginable. "Mommy, I want to see him." Ethan's voice started to tremble now, a blend of excitement and fear, tugging painfully at Jessica's heart. "No. You don't." She tried to sound firm, but despair wove through her words, undermining her strength. "He is not safe, Ethan. He's lying to you." Suddenly, the winds outside howled louder, drowning out her voice. The laughter returned, more menacing than before, wrapping around her like a noose, tightening with every sound. It was a taunt. It invited them into the dark, promised them secrets and joy, sick, twisted joy meant for no one alive. In a moment of clarity, Jessica recalled the stories she had heard, the tales of the shadow that lived among them, that whispered to children and led them into the night. It had been a cautionary tale, one meant to keep little ones from straying too far. Never did she think she would face it herself. "Ethan!" she cried out, panic bubbling over. "I need you to listen to me. Close your eyes. Forget what he said. We need to get out of this house." For a heartbeat, Ethan hesitated, uncertainty flickering through his eyes. But then the figure outside swayed, beckoning him toward it with crooked fingers. The soft, sweet voice called to him, promising wonder and delight. She saw her son's resolve vanish as he took a step toward the window. "No!" Jessica screamed as dread crashed over her. In a surge of adrenaline, she lunged forward, but in that instant, darkness spilled into the room like a tidal wave, pulling at Ethan, claiming him piece by piece. Jessica felt the suffocating weight of it, as if the very air was alive and suffocating her will. With a fierce cry, she clutched her son's arm, pulling him back. But it was too late. Ethan's laughter echoed in her ears, a fragile sound tainted by the shimmer of something unholy. "Mommy, please. I have to go. I can see the toys, all of them." As she desperately wrestled him away from the suffocating darkness, her heart dropped at the realization he had already started to slip from her grasp, pulled by an unseen force. The house trembled under a new howl of wind, an angry, feral sound ringing like a warning. Sweat trickled down her back, and fear transformed into raw, primal instinct. With her other hand, she ripped open the door to the hallway. Ahead, dim light peeked through the cracks, the reassuring glow of the outside world. They must escape this nightmare. She had to fight for her son, but as she turned back to pull Ethan through the door, her heart sank. The figure at the window had taken a step inside, darkness pooling at its feet, crawling closer toward them. Its laugh reverberated, drowning the sound of thunder. "Jessica, you can't leave," it mocked, a chorus of fragmented whispers layered within the laughter. That single sentence echoed in her mind. The truth cut through her like cold steel. This was no mere game. Ethan's eyes widened, caught between innocence and the seductive pull of the creature. In that moment, she understood. It was going to take everything. As the darkness coiled tighter, the house shuddered. Jessica's grip on Ethan tightened, freezing in horror. Could she fight it? Could she keep him with her? Or would they fall prey to the depths of the unknown? And just as hope seemed to slip away, a rattle echoed from the basement below, a sound so wrong it sent chills racing down her spine. What lay in the darkness beneath them? They couldn't stay in the nursery anymore. They had to face the mysteries buried below. Would there be a way out, or would they find more darkness than they ever imagined? As Jessica turned, her instincts screamed for her to keep moving. The faint glow from the hallway behind her flickered like a candle in a storm, beckoning her and Ethan toward safety. Yet the creature at the window seeped into her thoughts, its voice lingering like smoke. "You can't leave." Every syllable resonated in her core, urging her to reconsider, to give in. "Come with me," she shouted, her heart pounding like a war drum. She pulled Ethan with a strength born from desperation. But he wavered. Her little boy stood transfixed, caught in a web spun from temptation and dread. The seductive lure of the darkness promised glorious things, toys that danced, laughter that sparkled, freedom from fear, a siren's call that sent icy fingers up her spine. "No. We're leaving." She yanked him back hard, her fingers digging into his small wrist until he yelped in surprise. The world outside the house had long since resembled a dystopian nightmare, yet nothing compared to what they faced within these walls, but the creature knew it was winning. It shifted slightly, the shadows pooling thicker around it like a storm cloud hungry for rain. The laughter returned, now a chorus of childlike giggles mixed with something sinister, something that chilled Jessica to her very soul. "Ethan." Her voice trembled, teetering between pleading and command. "We have to go. Now." Finally, it was as if a fog lifted from his gaze, revealing the fear beneath. Where do we go?" he asked, eyes glistening like wet stones. "The basement," she said, unaware of the landmine of fear she had just invoked. "There might be a way out, a window, a door." Ethan's brow furrowed, the shadows flickering across his face. "But what about him?" "The man," he said. "Forget what he said." Jessica hissed, urgency rising like bile in her throat. With one hand still clutching Ethan's wrist, she dashed toward the door at the end of the hallway. She knew they couldn't stay here. Each moment lingered like poison. But as they reached the door, it creaked open on its own, the old wood groaning like a wounded beast, revealing a staircase leading down into darkness. Each step seemed to cry out for them, pulling them toward an abyss filled with muffled whispers. "No! There's nothing down there!" she shouted, yet a chill shivered through her, rooting her in place. The basement was a maw. Nightmares lived in spaces forgotten. But there was no turning back now. As she stepped onto the first creaking stair, the air thickened like syrup, dragging her down. With each step, the darkness wrapped around her like a shroud, hiding her son's wide eyes, innocent, yet endlessly curious. "Mommy?" His voice echoed oddly, jarring her from the haze of fear. "What's down there?" A faint glow flickered deep inside the basement, a soft rhythm pulsating against the surrounding darkness, like a heartbeat. The glow seemed to be calling them closer. But she hesitated, her mind buzzing with panic. What could reside in a place so dreary and deep? Could there be hope below, or was it merely another trap laid to catch them? "I don't know, sweetie," she whispered, not daring to acknowledge the truth lurking there, waiting for them. Suddenly, a soft scratching from within the depths, like fingernails against wood. Jessica froze, heart thundering in her chest. What awaited them in that darkness? "Mommy!" Ethan gasped, pulling back instinctively. What if it's before he could finish? Jessica's determination swelled. "We have to go. We have to find out." They plunged into the dark, the sound of their footsteps swallowed by the eerie silence surrounding them. The glow steadied ahead, a beacon of hope or a trap, she couldn't be sure. As they descended, a chilling whisper floated into the air, wrapping around them like a serpent. "Welcome home, little one." What had they stepped into? As the basement swallowed them whole, an unsettling weight pressed on her chest, crushing her resolve. Then, the door at the top of the stairs slammed shut, cutting off their escape. They were now alone in the abyss. Jessica felt her blood run cold. They had ventured too deep into the unknown, and it was hungry. What other horrors lay beneath, waiting for their arrival? Would they uncover answers or find themselves entangled in a nightmare with no way out? The moment they landed at the bottom of the stairs, the air clung to them like damp wool, heavy and suffocating. The glow pulsated in the distance, casting eerie shadows that danced against the rough stone walls. Jessica squinted into the murky depths, searching for the source of the light. Each flicker felt like a heartbeat echoing through the emptiness, urging her to draw closer. "Mommy, I'm scared," Ethan whispered, his small voice trembling as he pressed against her side. She could feel his fear wrapping around them, mingling with her own. "We'll be okay," she said, though doubt gnawed at her. They had entered a realm where darkness reigned, and doubt was a slippery slope. As they ventured forward, the scratching resumed, louder this time, clawing at her sanity. It came from everywhere. The walls, the ceiling, even the floor seemed alive, breathing in concert with the pulsating glow. She held Ethan tighter, ready to shield him from whatever horrors awaited. "Mommy," Ethan's voice was barely a breath, but a chill moved through her. "What if it's coming for us?" The glow flickered again, brighter. In its light, she saw shapes: old crates, broken furniture. They looked like the remnants of lives long forgotten. Her heart raced as visions of lost souls swept through her mind, shadows of the past looming like specters. "Stay close," she said, her voice a razor's edge, slicing through the unsettling silence. But as she stepped forward, the floor shifted beneath her, sending a jolt of panic through her. Cracks split the ground, revealing dark, yawning chasms that seemed to beckon her in. Just then, the whisper returned, soft yet insistent. Help him, who?" She gasped, mind racing, pulse quickening. Was the whisper meant for Ethan? Her instinct screamed to flee, yet something deep inside her urged her to press on. Ethan tugged on her jacket, his eyes wide and glassy. "What does it want?" "I don't know," she shouted, too loudly. But there was no response except for the scratching growing nearer, closer. She turned, scanning the shadows, her heart pounding in a frantic rhythm. And then she saw it, a figure emerging from the shadows, long fingers stretched out like the claws of a predator ready to pounce. The light pulsed faster as the figure moved, revealing a gaunt face, hollow eyes that seemed to suck in the warmth of the air around it, and a smile tailored from nightmares. "Come closer," it beckoned, the voice a sickly sweet drawl. "I have something for you." Jessica steeled herself, dragging Ethan back a step as his breath hitched against her side. "No!" she shouted, feeling the walls themselves closing in around them. "Mommy," he whimpered, body trembling. But the creature continued, undeterred. "Your boy, he needs to join us. He'll be happier here forever." A surge of maternal instinct bore down on her. How could this horror promise happiness? The walls around them pulsed with an ancient energy, growing disorienting. Jessica knew one thing for sure: this place wanted Ethan, and it would do anything to take him. "No. We're leaving." She spun to grab Ethan's hand, yanking him toward the stairs they had descended. But the darkness conspired against her. The ground rumbled, chunks of stone breaking apart beneath their feet. The figure's laughter echoed, a cacophony that rung in her skull, freezing her in place. "You can't escape. You belong to me." Suddenly, the glow erupted, filling the basement with blinding light, illuminating the creature's face for just a moment, a face not of malice but of something far worse, deep sorrow and longing, as if it once had a life, hope, and now only sought to share its curse. Jessica squinted against the brilliance, torn between horror and compassion. But the moment passed, darkness clawing its way back, ready to enclose them. With trembling hands, she pulled Ethan tightly against her, desperation surging inside her. "Run!" The word was a command, fear the fuel that propelled them up the crumbling stairs, but as they dashed toward the door they had come through, frantic whispers wrapped around them, intertwining with the darkness, promising everything could be theirs if they would just turn back. What awaited them above? Safety or more of the shadows? With the creature's voice echoing behind them, Jessica's heart raced in sync with the descending darkness. The door loomed like an exit to salvation, the other side a complete unknown. Would they be able to break free, or would they stumble deeper into despair? Every instinct told her to fight, to escape, but the darkness offered a seductive pull, like a curse weaving itself into the very marrow of her soul. The door groaned ominously as they hit it, Jessica shoving it with all her strength. It felt as if it resisted, the heavy wood seeming to have a life of its own. The whispers roared behind them, each syllable curling around her like vines, tightening around her throat and pulling her back. "Mommy, please." Ethan's voice broke through the chaos, his small hand clutching her tightly. She couldn't look back. She could only focus on the fading light ahead, the hope of freedom tantalizingly close yet maddeningly out of reach. Almost there, just a few more steps. The door suddenly swung open, the shadows behind them roaring in protest. They stumbled through, and Jessica barely caught herself as she nearly fell onto the cobblestones outside. The night air rushed in, cold and sharp as if it awakened all the senses she had dulled in the basement. They collapsed on the ground, gasping, and Jessica quickly scanned their surroundings. Moonlight bathed the quiet street, everything was still, the only sound being the distant fluttering of leaves and the pulsing echo of her heart. "Are we safe?" Ethan whimpered. I think so," Jessica lied, her voice trembling. She didn't feel safe. The sense of being chased, of lurking shadows, clung to her despite the bright moon hovering overhead. But then, a chill swept through the air, sending goosebumps racing down her arms. Somewhere in the unnaturally still air, she heard it again, the scratching noise. It was fainter, yet distinct, as if the darkness itself was trying to claw its way back through the breach they had just made. "Mommy," Ethan pointed, his finger shaking. "Look." Jessica turned towards where he indicated. At the edge of the properties, where the light faded into the darkness, she saw the figure from the basement. It stood still, watching them, its eyes glowing with an unsettling hunger. "Go! Run!" she shouted, panic overtaking her once more. They sprinted down the street, the cold air biting into their lungs, desperation fueling their flight. Each pounding step felt like they were racing against a monster that didn't tire, didn't sleep. As they ran, the familiar neighborhoods blurred into an unknown expanse of shadow-laden streets. She could feel something trailing behind, the air thickening with dread. And then, the whispers returned, sharper and clearer this time, slicing through the space between them and freedom. Help him, Ethan started to falter, his little legs working as fast as they could, but it wasn't fast enough. He was tiring. The oppressive weight of the creature's gaze weighing on them felt unbearable. "We have to keep moving," she urged, her grip tightening around Ethan's wrist. But he didn't answer, fear overwhelming him as he stumbled, almost losing his balance. Suddenly, she heard a round tinny ring, coming from her pocket. Her heart jolted. The phone. She had almost forgotten about it. The blaring sound felt absurd against the backdrop of terror. "Mommy, the monster!" Ethan's wide eyes darted around. The creature seemed to be closing in on them, laughter echoing in the chill air, a mockery of their frantic escape. "Stay close. Just a little further," she cried, pulling him along. Ethan's breath came in gasps, his face pale under the moonlight. As she dug for the phone, the whisper turned darker. "You can't escape the past." Jessica retched a breath, feeling the ground shift beneath them. An unseen force tugged at her, as if the very earth wanted her to turn back towards the nightmare. "Please, no. Not now." Just then, her thumb found the power button, and the sudden light of the phone revealed the figure. Closer than before. Eyes locked onto them, the sorrowful smile stretching wide, twisting the horror into something worse. "Mommy, it wants me," Ethan faltered, his voice trembling as realization sank in. Panic coursed through Jessica's veins like ice. She fumbled with the phone, her mind racing. Should she call for help? What if the signal somehow drew the creature closer? But she had no other choice. "We need to get out of here. I won't let it take you," she shouted. Defiantly. Finding help won't matter when you're trapped in the dark. The whispers curled around them, more insistent now, promising dreadful things. What would she say? Who could help? Would she have to reveal what they had seen? Or was this merely the beginning of something worse? As they sprinted deeper into the unknown, more questions formed than answers. What awaited them in this seemingly quiet world? And most importantly, how far would she have to go to protect Ethan from the dark that followed? The light from the phone danced across the ground, illuminating their path ahead. But it did nothing to chase away the darkness that pressed against them. Jessica clutched the device like a lifeline, heart racing as she glanced over her shoulder. The figure was still there, its eerie smile unmoving, almost as if it thrived on their fear. "Keep running, Ethan. We can't stop." she urged, the chill of dread creeping deeper into her bones. But his small legs were giving out, each step a struggle heavier than the last. What if it gets us? He gasped, desperation flooding his voice. She felt his grip slackening, and panic squeezed her heart. Just a little further. She yelled, determination pushing her forward, yet the whispers grew louder in her ears, a cacophony of sinister promises that made her skin crawl. Help him, you must know. She shouted back at the darkness, frustration and fear blending into a potent mix. I want no one is taking my son. The streetlights flickered, shadows swayed and stretched. She could almost hear the whispers intertwining with the sound of night creatures, creating a symphony of nightmares. Each flick of her phone's light revealed fleeting glimpses of twisted figures lurking just beyond the reach of her sight. Ethan stumbled again. Mommy, his voice broke with anguish. Jessica could feel the darkness closing in, it was as if the very air around them was crafted from phantom hands that wanted to drag them back into the abyss. Fight it, Ethan. We can't look back. They dashed past parked cars, past silent houses, some with windows that seemed to watch them, and some that whispered secrets she didn't want to hear. Jessica's feet were now on autopilot, her mind racing with chaotic thoughts. Where do we go? She gasped, searching for an answer she couldn't find, then she spotted a light, faint but hopeful, breaking through the oppressive night like a beacon. A small convenience store, barely open, but the flickering neon sign felt like salvation. There. The store. We can hide. She shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. Together they moved toward the flickering light, desperation fueling their pushes forward. They reached the entrance, and Jessica shoved the door open. A bell jingled, a sound that seemed jarring against the throes of chaos outside. Mommy, please. Ethan clutched her side, terror written deep in his wide eyes. He turned back towards the door, looking for the safety that could have been, but Jessica slammed it shut behind them, locking it with a heavy thud. Inside, the light felt almost disorienting. Shelves lined with snacks and beverages surrounded them, but the air was thick with tension. This wasn't the refuge it should have been. Stay close. She cautioned, eyes darting from one end of the narrow aisle to the other. And that's when she heard it again, the scratching. This time it played against the metal of the store's side wall, urgent and relentless. Help him, Ethan cowered behind her, shivering as he whimpered. What does it want? I don't know, she replied, breath hitching in her throat. The whispers swirled like smoke around them, ringing louder and more insistent. They caught a glimpse of the glass door that showed nothing but blackness outside, but as if sensing their despair, it shifted. A figure emerged from the shadows, creeping closer, eyes gleaming with that insatiable hunger. Mommy, I can't, I'm so scared, her heart hammered as the figure drew nearer. Disbelief rooted her in place, staring wide-eyed. What kind of nightmare stalked them? Stay behind me. She commanded, the threat clawing at her insides. Ethan slipped and fell, hitting the floor hard. Ethan! She cried, reaching out. But before she could catch him, the lights flickered violently, plunging them into darkness. The only sound was the scuttling of something just outside their refuge. Then came the whispers, clearer somehow, echoing with horrible certainty, "You'll never escape them." As the darkness enveloped them, a terrible realization dawned on Jessica. They had escaped one place of horror, but had they only stumbled into another? A low guttural sound came from somewhere behind her, the distinct echo of something unnatural moving through the aisles. And then everything went cold. What awaited them in this flickering light? Would they ever truly find a safe space? Or was this the prelude to a much darker fate? The darkness pressed inward, heavy and suffocating. Jessica's breath came short and ragged, a frantic rhythm against the approaching dread. She could sense the figure outside moving, something lean and twisted, clawing at the door. Each scratch echoed like a countdown. Ethan! She rasped, panic rippling through her. Are you okay? He nodded, which sent a shiver of ice down her spine. She could still feel the threat looming, even with him tied closely to her side. The dim light surged back intermittently, revealing shelves that felt like they were closing in, boxing them deeper into their prison. As she turned, the whispers picked up speed. Help him resonated with a frantic urgency, almost pleading. Jessica squeezed her eyes shut, pressing her palms against her temples. Stop. Just stop. She shouted into the swirling whispers. Another flicker of the lights, and she caught a glimpse of something lurking between the aisles, a dark, hulking mass with elongated limbs and a grotesque, moving shadow. Her heart thudded wildly, an animal desperate to escape. "Mommy, please." Ethan whimpered, his small fingers digging into her shirt. She felt the heat of fear radiating from him, yet the whispers turned into choked laughter, cruel and taunting. She forced herself to think. "We need to find a phone call for help." The store was cluttered, and the phone behind the counter felt like 1,000 miles away. Jessica edged forward, every instinct screaming to run, yet something sinister outside urged her to stay. The scratching had become maddeningly rhythmic, like an ominous drumbeat counting seconds before they were swallowed whole. "Stay behind me," she said again, her voice a fragile thread. Each step felt like it might be their last, and just as she reached the counter, the lights extinguished completely. "Ethan!" Darkness consumed her sight, and a cold wave washed over her skin, infecting her with raw terror. A thick silence swallowed the store but for the soft, sickening sounds of scratching at the door, stronger now. "Mommy, I can't see." Ethan cried softly, trembling. "Just hold on tight," she said, her heart feeling as though it might burst. Jessica fumbled for the counter, counting the steps backward, knowing that they needed to find another way out. Suddenly, a loud bang resonated from behind her. Something had slammed into the door with terrible force. Glass rattled in its frame, as the barrier screamed against frenzied attempts to break through. The lights flickered hesitantly, revealing the dark mass inching toward them, and for just a moment, Jessica saw a face, a twisted visage, grinning with impossibly sharp teeth, a mouth that stretched too wide. "No," she whispered in horror, a dark chill creeping into the pit of her stomach. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice broke through, pulling her back. The lights flickered on for just a second longer than before, illuminating the terror on her son's face. Then darkness. "Run!" she screamed, spinning on her heels, the instinct to protect her child overwhelming. They plunged deeper into the aisles as the laughter swelled outside, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. The whispers grew stronger, and then an unbearable realization struck her. What if the true horror wasn't just that creature, but what it had come for? The whispers hadn't just been a seduction, they were a confession. Help him, Ethan cried out as they stumbled into the back of the store. There, against the wall, was a door marked "Employees Only." "Maybe it leads to a back exit, Ethan," she urged, pulling at the handle, but the door was locked tight, and from beyond it came a cacophony of voices rising, pleading and screaming, a haunting symphony of desolation. "What is happening?" she gasped, panic coursing through her veins. Before she could think, the lights ignited one last time, bright and blinding. And her son's screams echoed in the sudden silence as the ground started to shake beneath their feet. What were they about to face behind that door? Would their next escape plunge them further into darkness, or could it be worse than they dared to imagine? The door rattled violently against the wall, as if the very hinges betrayed the weight of the horror pressing upon them. Jessica's heart raced, adrenaline surging through her veins as she turned back to Ethan, clutching him close. The door bore the straining pressure of want, a sick eagerness to spill its contents and let the darkness envelop them whole. "Hurry! We need to find another way," Jessica urged, wheeling around, their breaths unsteady in the air thick with dread. But the shadows didn't just linger around the store, they clawed at her mind, whispering promises that made her shiver. "Help him come closer, Mommy," Ethan whimpered, his voice small and fragile, a haunting echo of innocence. The darkness around them pulsated, threatening to pull them into its embrace. Driven by instinct, she rushed toward the store's back exit, a simple door with a heavy lock. With every step, she fought against the whispers growing louder, clawing at the edges of her sanity. "No! I want to let you take him!" She shouted into the void, yanking the door violently. To her relief, it swung open with a resounding creak, revealing a narrow alleyway, dark but unyielding. The faint smell of rain brushed against her face, mingling with the coolness of the night. It felt like a sliver of hope, a chance to break free from the horrors that had been slowly closing in. "Let us go, Ethan." She grabbed his hand, leading him out into the uncertainty. They stumbled onto a deserted street, where the moon cast sinister shadows on the pavement. Jessica glanced behind them, a sudden fear gripping her heart. Had they truly escaped the nightmare, or was it simply lying in wait? But as they pressed forward, an empty silence washed over them, wrapping around her like a shroud. The noises had faded, leaving only their hurried breaths resonating in the air. "We need to find help," she urged, pushing fear aside. "Mommy, I'm tired." Ethan's voice was a tired whisper, tinged with an edge of disbelief. Jessica felt a wave of exhaustion wrestle within her, threatening to drown her spirit. But she had to keep him moving. "Just a little farther. We can find someone, anyone who can help." She reeled with that thought, desperate to cling to it. Somewhere in the distance, the comforting lights of a nearby diner glimmered, a familiar sign of warmth. "There. We can go to the diner. They'll have people, lights, everything will be okay." Jessica pulled Ethan closer, racing toward the safety she promised. But even in her desperate run, the shadows seemed to reach out, whispering lies that made her blood run cold, but they made it. The diner's neon sign flickered alive, illuminating the night and momentarily absorbing the encroaching darkness. And inside, patrons nursed coffee and laughter flowed like music, a sound she longed to hear after the tension and dread of the past hours. "Stay with me," she whispered fiercely to Ethan, who gazed up, wide-eyed and bewildered, clutching onto her waist. Together, they burst through the diner doors. The warmth washed over them, battling the chill that had followed them. Distant chatter came to a hush. Heads turned, curious eyes taking in the disheveled duo, a seriousness settling in the air. "Is everything all right?" a friendly waitress asked, her face twisted in concern. Jessica could barely hold back tears as she opened her mouth, ready to spill every ounce of horror they had faced. But before she could respond, the shadows flickered and sighed outside, a reminder that danger still loomed. "Mommy," Ethan's voice piped up, a child's innocence battling against the nightmare. "What if the man comes for us?" The question sliced through Jessica's heart like a knife. She pulled him closer, desperately preparing to shield him from whatever had tainted their world. "He won't," Jessica assured him, her voice shaky. "He won't ever get to you. Not again." But doubt twisted in her gut. How could she guarantee their safety when the unseen monster lurked so close? From behind the counter, a strong voice brought attention back to the present. A diner worker had picked up the phone, poised to call the police. "Ma'am, can you tell us your location? What's your emergency?" Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the diner windows. The figure outside stood cloaked in shadows, a ghastly smile sparkling in the downpour. Jessica's breath caught in her throat as panic surged. "He's here. The man. We have to get out." She screamed, eyes scanning the room. Ethan whimpered, his grip tightening around her waist as the diner swelled with murmurs, fear inching into each face present. But in those helpless moments, something clicked within Jessica, a fire ignited deep inside. "No!" Jessica shouted, her voice steady now as she stepped toward the window. "You will not take my son." She turned back, determination shining in her eyes. "Everyone listen. We need to stand together. This night won't end with us." The faces around her turned serious, rallying against the shared fear, united in prevention. Then, the whisper emerged once more, sounding less threatening in the diner's warmth. "Help him," it coiled like smoke around them. Jessica breathed deeply, pushing those thoughts away and focusing on the people, now a growing collective of strength against the creature outside. Then, without warning, the lights flickered and the electricity surged, illuminating the diner with piercing brightness. In an instant, the figure outside let out a shriek, a sound twisted between fury and sorrow, the darkness breaking like glass around them. The patrons filed out, ready to face the shadow that had haunted them for too long, banded together by fear. Something powerful hung in the air, as if moments of past tragedies tethered to secrets begged release. Jessica held tightly to Ethan, her heart swelling with protective love. "We're safe. We're not alone. Together," she urged as every person in the diner stepped forward, united against the darkness. Slowly but surely, the creature began to recede, melting back into the shadows like fog before dawn. The warmth of connection filled the space, and Jessica felt hope blooming anew. They could turn the tide. In that moment, the whispers faded, surrendering to the roar of human resilience. They had fought against horror and won for tonight, in the embrace of light and togetherness. The shadows stayed at bay.as the night softened into dawn. Jessica looked at Ethan, wiping away his tears with gentle hands as the first light wrapped around them. "We made it," she whispered. And together, they stepped into the new day, a world of endless possibilities looming ahead. Against the backdrop of what could have been their last night, this was a true new beginning, a chance to heal, a chance to seek brighter tomorrows. You need to hold on to this message of hope. Don't forget to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Your support matters. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us keep the stories coming. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice is important here. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.